What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I actually got a few things that I want to go through. There are several actual important Dolphins related reports out today, so I want to start getting through those. The first thing I just want to mention just really fast is there was reports that Ryan Fitzpatrick may end up retiring. No matter what it looks like, Ryan Fitzpatrick will not play for the Miami Dolphins in 2021. It looks like whatever the road ends up being, the most likely road is that he will play for somebody else. But there are reports out, several reports today, saying that he does still want to play in 2021, so he will most likely go someplace else. Real quick, additional to that, the Dolphins did sign 3 players to exclusive rights tenders. So let's just take a quick look at that. We may not know what the official salary cap number is for the 2021 NFL season, but we now know that the Dolphins plan to use the exclusive rights free agent tender on 3 of their promising young players. According to the team's official website, the Miami Dolphins have placed the tender on linebacker Calvin Munson, who, you know, he's at this point a solid developmental player. Especially with Van Noy now being gone and some changes in the linebacker room expected, maybe he can step up and really, take a more prominent role, but he hasn't really had one to this point. From what I do remember of him in limited action, from what I've seen, he has shown some flashes, so we'll see if he can develop. Cornerback Nick Needham, he's definitely always had upside, but he's always had things that have kind of balanced that out, I guess would be the nicest way to say it, right? Like he's made some nice plays, had 1 or 2 interceptions, right? And then made some good plays on the ball and getting some passes defensed. But then he'll have penalties and stuff, right? So, but a good developmental player, I would definitely tender him. It's a solid way to keep him around. And especially too because you don't know what's going to happen with Xavier Howard. And then cornerback Jamal Perry, let's see, and they released an official statement, etc., etc. Most notable name on this list is defensive back Nick Needham. Needham appeared in 28 games with the Dolphins over the last 2 seasons, starting 17 of those games. In 2020, Needham recorded 58 total tackles, 1 sack, 2 interceptions, and 7 passes defended. Right, so he can put up some decent numbers, but then he'll get burned, or he'll have a costly penalty, etc., etc. He appeared in all 16 games with the team, primarily playing in the slot. This was an excellent move by the Dolphins. It was solid. I personally, and just a real quick side note, people have talked about Bobby McCain possibly being a cap casualty this offseason. I just would have rather have had him remain, and I've told you, I have disagreed with them moving him to safety from the minute they did it. He should have stayed as a slot corner. That's where he's best. That's what the Dolphins had paid him, as the highest paid player as a slot defender. That's where he should have been, etc. So I don't like that, but that's what they did. He could end up being a cap casualty, but they did end up moving Mccain to safety, and so they did need somebody in the slot, and Needham has played solid there. Overall, he just he's got to get rid of the penalties, he's got to be more consistent, and then whatever. He's not Bobby McCain, that's the thing, right? He's not Bobby McCain. Bobby McCain was phenomenal in the slot. Anyway, Miami also tendered cornerback Jamal Perry. Perry appeared in 27 games with the Dolphins over the last 2 seasons, recording 84 total tackles, 7 pass breakups, and 1 interception. Lastly, the Dolphins tendered Calvin Munson. Munson was signed off New England's practice squad on December 18th. He brings familiarity and depth to a position Miami hopes to upgrade in the offseason. So, whatever. Anyway, let's see. And then I did want to actually, there is an article. You know what? Before I read that, though, let me go ahead and give you the big news, because there actually is some breaking news that just happened. So, because the Dolphins are involved in a trade. So, let's see. 2020 first-round pick Isaiah Wilson reportedly traded to the Dolphins from the Titans. So, let's just think about that real quick on its face before we get into the details. So, the Tennessee Titans are trading a first-round offensive tackle, right? I think he's an offensive tackle. Anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. He's offensive lineman, right? To the Dolphins. Now, the Dolphins definitely need offensive line help. But we've seen them now a couple times with Taco Charlton, with Josh Rosen, Robert Nkemdiche, right? There have been multiple guys now that they've taken first-round guys from other teams, and it hasn't worked out, right? Now, their player evaluation to this point has been pretty garbage all around, whether it be in the draft or free agency or what have you, or through trades or whatever. But historically, with this regime so far, they have done this now a few times, and it hasn't worked out. None of those guys are around, right? Josh Rosen's not here. Robert Nkemdiche's not here. Taco Charlton's not here. These guys are not here anymore, right? Let alone the rest of their careers and the context that adds, right? So there is that. Let's keep that in mind. But the Dolphins now have traded, so they get this guy. So now what did they give up for him? And let's get the details. The Tennessee Titans traded 2020 first-round draft pick Isaiah Wilson to the Miami Dolphins, according to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport. So first of all, that does say that they just drafted this guy in the previous draft, and they're already, ready to get rid of him. Now, they do have Laramie Tunsil, and they do have some other good guys there, but they did lose, like Jack Conklin. Anyway, we'll get into that. So let's, Albert Breer of the MMQB reported Miami is also getting a 2022 7th-round pick. Okay, so we get this dude and a 7th-round pick for the 2022 draft. Okay, and we are sending them a 2021 7th-rounder. I can't imagine that's all we had to give up. I mean, if we got... if that's true, then that's... I can't believe I would be saying this, but that's actually pretty fucking good. I mean, I can't imagine that we only had to give them a 7th-round pick from this draft. That seems pretty low, especially considering the dude was a first-round pick in 2020. So I don't know if this is complete yet. Anyway, maybe I'm missing something here. Let's see. Let me read this again. Miami is also getting a 2020. So we get a 7th from, and we are sending them a 7th from. That's crazy. So I mean, that's the best trade that they would have done. So even if the dude doesn't pan out, they didn't really have to give up anything. If this is the case, I can't imagine we only had to give up a 7th-round pick. But for now, because that's all that's in this article, I'm going to believe it. So until that changes. Anyway, let's continue with it, though. Having lost 2016 All-Pro Jack Conklin to free agency last year, the Titans needed to address their offensive line in the draft. Wilson was the 6th offensive tackle off the board, going to Tennessee with the 29th pick. Mike Tanier gave the team a B- grade for the decision, noting how the former Georgia star could succeed Conklin and stay there for the next 5 to 7 years. That projection proved to be far too optimistic. So there's a reason why that they're giving up after, a single year. I personally don't think that that's really fair enough. The Dolphins being the ones to fucking, take a flyer on a dude that another team's willing to give up on after just a year, it doesn't really give me good vibes because, as I mentioned, the Dolphins haven't been very good at evaluating or, especially picking up other teams, former first rounders and so on and so forth. So, that gives me concern. But if they only gave up a 7th-round pick from this year and they get him and a 7th-rounder from next year, even if he doesn't pan out, they didn't have to give up really anything. So it's not a bad risk, right? Like it's very low risk for potentially high reward, right? Because he only had a year, and I'm generally not good with, making decisions on players or whatever after just a single season, especially just their rookie year. I think that's kind of ridiculous. And I mean, they had a good season too, right? And they have a good team. So it seems strange to me that they would do it. And I'm not confident in the Dolphins' ability to be the ones to, adequately but they didn't have to give anything, so we'll see how it pans out. Wilson made one appearance as a rookie and logged 4 snaps. His debut campaign was interrupted when the Titans placed him on the reserve COVID-19 list in July. He landed back on the list in September. So that is actually potentially very important. Now, as you guys have, heard me say a million times, one of the big reasons why I didn't think the season should have even gone on was because it's not necessarily so much what the virus does to them when they have it, and they didn't say if he actually had it or not, but it's not unreasonable to think that could be the case with him having been on it for such a long period of time and having to be on it twice. So anyway, but the problem isn't necessarily while they have it, it's the long-term effects that can be derivative of having it, or of having had it, right? And so because it does irreparable, immeasurable damage to various different organs within the body. And so and it can cause very bad long-term effects or other illnesses down the road. And whatever. So that could potentially play a factor into it. Unfortunately, if he did have it, even if he turns out to be a good player, his life could be short-lived because of something that happens related to that. Unfortunately, and hopefully not. But this is the risk and the possibility, that the NFL didn't care to, worry about, right? And so there are tons of guys who got it that could end up having, short-lived lives because of it. Anyway, days after his second reserve COVID-19 designation, Wilson was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence in Nashville. So on top of that, he also has potential off-the-field issues, so that's great. And this regime under Chris Greer and Brian Flores, they're not really having a good track record with that either. Let's recall, right? They've brought in a couple guys that have, and the Xavier Howard thing is continuing to develop, right? And he keeps having drama pop up, so that's not even done. But the running back, Mark Walton, right? I think was the name, right? They're having issues with that too, so. Anyway, he allegedly crashed his vehicle into a concrete wall before officers used a breathalyzer test to determine his blood alcohol level was 0.107, which is pretty high, above the legal limit of 0.08. I mean, it's really high in Tennessee. The 22-year-old received a suspension for violating team rules in December and missed the Titans' Week 13 loss to Cleveland Browns. Shortly thereafter, the team placed him on the reserve non-football illness list to bring his season to an end. So there's concerns there. So there's that, which of course adds to my concerns with the Dolphins doing it. But again, as of right now, they literally only gave up a 7th round pick from this year. So what they had to give up, I can't hate on, if I'm being honest. Currently, he is dealing with some personal issues, which will take some time for him to work through. General Manager John Robinson told reporters at the time, "We will continue to help him and support him with the hope that he can ultimately rejoin the team." And obviously, they decided that whatever his issues are, whether it be, just his off-the-field issues, or whether it be a combination of that, the COVID, not living up to his first round potential in his first season, whatever, I don't know. They decided to give up on him, and the Dolphins are going to be the ones to take a flyer. In February, Robinson acknowledged he hadn't spoken with Wilson since the decision. He went on to raise doubt about the player's long-term future with the franchise. "We did a lot of work on him leading up to the evaluation process," the Titans general manager said. "The player that was here in the fall in Nashville was not the player we evaluated. He's going to have to make a determination if he wants to play pro football. That's on him." So we'll see how this pans out, man. Wilson then said in a since-deleted tweet he was done with football as a Titan. The writing was on the wall from there, blah, blah, blah. Executing a trade allows the Titans to salvage some value in a difficult situation, and they save $2.6 million against their 2021 salary cap. Acquiring Wilson obviously comes with a level of risk given how quickly things unraveled in Nashville, but it's a sensible gamble for somebody deemed worthy of a first-round selection only 1 year ago. And for the low price, I agree. Unfortunately, though, it looks like there is substantial risk there. And one of the biggest concerns for me is that because, look, I mean, if it pans out and he turns things around and everything's all good and he, lives up to his first round potential and he becomes a wonderful offensive lineman for this Dolphins team, then obviously that's wonderful and that's great. But again, their track record with guys that have off the field issues is not good. Their evaluation of players is not good, period. Their, attempts to bring in former first rounders from other teams has been, lackluster at best, right? Like at an absolute best, right? So it's like, I don't know, man. I have concerns because if it doesn't pan out, I feel like, part of what look, there's definitely potential that this could be part of their solution for the offensive line. And bro, I'm telling you, it's not going to be... I mean, look, even if he does end up being great, it's almost going to be like his rookie season again in year 2, right? Because he almost didn't have one. He didn't really play. He was, either suspended or on the COVID list or something along those lines, right? So he really didn't even fucking play, barely even played. It's pretty much going to be, a rookie season all over again. Now he's on another team, a new team with all new people around him. I think that there's a very high probability that the Dolphins are going to go after Deshaun Watson. Anyway, but yeah, he is a tackle. But also though, that there's another thing, right? The Dolphins just drafted a couple tackles last year, even in the first round tackles. So now this first round tackle is going to compete with who? Austin Jackson? Or Robert Hunt, the guys that they just drafted. So again, now it's you can say, do they even have confidence in their own guys that they brought in? So, man, I mean, there's a lot of potential bad, a lot of real potential bad with this move. We'll have to wait and see how it pans out, man. Honestly, I'm not really excited about it because of how, how bad it could be. I mean, because worst case scenario. Okay, here's worst case scenario. They brought him in, and they're going to sell it as if he's, part of the solution or whatever, and thereby showing that, and he, possibly competes and or, takes over for, let's say, an Austin Jackson or a Robert Hunt, which means that those guys, one of those guys, whichever guy, he plays better than, drops down the totem pole, which means that the guy that they drafted is dropping down the totem pole and possibly going to, flub out for the Dolphins. That doesn't say good things about their draft classes, which are already struggling pretty immensely, and who they've already cut 3 guys, from, possibly even going to trade their first round quarterback that they took, right? It wouldn't say anything good about the draft classes, who, need good things to be said because they're struggling. And then, but worst case scenario is that happens, and then this guy also doesn't pan out. And, let's say they either keep Tua and, he gets hurt, or they bring in Deshaun Watson and they still have a shitty season, right? That's worst case scenario. And it's possible. Best case scenario is, I don't know, I guess he plays really well. He takes over at one of the tackle spots, maybe right tackle. Robert Hunt shifts to the inside, starts playing guard, right? And then maybe, big dude at guard starts to really, and I don't know, right? Like, that's probably best case scenario is Austin Jackson takes a step forward at left tackle. You know, Robert Hunt would maybe shift in to guard, and Wilson would go out to right tackle or something along those lines. Who knows what's going to happen with Eric Flowers? You know, his first season with the Dolphins, to me, was not very impressive, especially considering the cap hit. And that's another thing, too, is maybe they're going to, you know, admit that it was, you know, an overpriced contract, and he's going to have to be another guy that they, you know, cut bait with early in his big contract because he didn't perform how they want, right? I mean, there's just a lot of potential bad that can come from this. We'll just have to wait and see how it plays out. And honestly, I think the room for success is pretty slim. All right, well, I took a little longer on that than I wanted to, but I do want to get to one more thing because it's really important and it ties into all of this. So, Miami Dolphins salary cap situation heading into 2021. After an intriguing 2020 season, what is the Miami Dolphins salary cap situation entering the 2021 NFL season? Let's take a look at the Dolphins salary cap situation as well as which players they could release, restructure, or extend to create additional salary cap space in 2021. And just to be clear, the Dolphins are already having salary cap issues. That's why they're having to cut guys like fucking, you know, Kyle Van Noy that they just brought in on big lucrative deals. That's why they're going to likely have to cut bait with guys like, he's going to get into this, but cut bait with some of the guys that he talks about in here or whatever. The Dolphins project to be around $37 million under the salary cap in 2021. So, in other words, that's what they're expected to have available to them as of right now. Everything, you know, taken into consideration, which he's going to explain here. As of March 6th, the 2021 NFL salary cap projects to be around $185 million. The Dolphins will carry over $15.2 million in cap space to the 2021 season, which is actually not terrible, but okay. Although, to be fair, they could have had a lot more carryover if they didn't blow through the cap space that they had last year, and have a, I don't know why, I'm not sure if this negative is supposed to be there. I think maybe a minus 540,529 adjusted applied to their cap per spot track. I'm not really like an expert. I'm just reading you what he's telling you. Anyway, point is though, therefore the Dolphins' current salary cap projects to be around $190 million. So that's what their cap is projected to be for the 2021 season based off of the NFL's salary cap and then what the Dolphins are projected to carry over from the previous year. As it stands, the Dolphins have around $158.4 million in commitments to their top 51 highest paid players with an additional $4.6 million in dead money. As such, the Dolphins are currently around $37 million under the salary cap heading into 2021. So then so they're projected to have $190 in salary cap. Then you add what their top 51 highest paid contracts is, the formula that they use to, get an estimate for what their contract totals are going to be for the season. And this number does include the release of Kyle Van Noy, but has not been confirmed officially as of March 6th because they're trying to trade him, which obviously is getting slimmer every day. I don't think it's going to happen. They're probably going to end up releasing him, but they're going to have to designate him as a post June 1st, I believe is the way to get the 12 point whatever million. Anyway, but that will bring them up to about $37 million in cap space. To view the most up-to-date numbers for the, which is actually going to go down slightly though, because they're bringing in this guy, Isaiah Wilson. So it's going to go down by like 2 million or something like that. Until they make more moves. To view the most up-to-date numbers for the Miami Dolphins salary cap space, check out our team-by-team 2021 salary cap space article, which is updated daily. Miami has a handful of potential options for releasing players. With a young team and a reasonable amount of salary cap space, I really don't think it's reasonable, especially when you take into the full context how much they blew through last year and how much they intend to fucking be, at least by reports, big spenders in free agency again this year. And how, their track record is with being, big spenders in free agency. It hasn't worked out well for them so far. and it doesn't look like it's going to continue. Anyway, let's see. The Miami Dolphins do not need to make moves out of desperation. I completely disagree with that. Actually, in fact, already they have done that by getting rid of Kyle Van Noy and proving that the contract was too expensive and he wasn't worth it, and they're only going to get what Kyle Van Noy is out of him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And because, they're actually much lower in cap space than they should be considering where they were the previous year, they've put themselves, not to mention, Xavier Howard wants a new contract, they got several guys that are coming up on contracts, talks, whatever, right? So Gesicki, Jerome Baker, a few guys, like they're not in a very comfortable cap situation, and releasing Van Noy is a desperation move in and of itself already. Anyway, however, with Kyle Van Noy's reported release, it is clear the Dolphins are willing to make moves to open cap space when they feel necessary. Could Devontae Parker be a surprise release this offseason? Parker enters the 2021 season with 3 years remaining on his contract. The Dolphins wide receiver is due to count $12.1 million against the cap this season. His $7.75 million base salary does not become fully guaranteed until March 17th, so the Dolphins have a window to release him if they want. Real quick, as you guys know, or should know, I wanted him when we took him. 2015, I believe, was the draft, if I'm not mistaken. I wanted him. I was so excited when we picked him. I actually wanted Kevin White, but I didn't think we were going to get him because of our draft positioning, and we didn't, obviously. And so I decided on that, and I came to terms with that before the draft. And I'm like, okay, I want Devontae Parker from Louisville because he's a beast. We got him. I was super excited. His biggest issue, right, he's never had a problem with, it's never been his talent, his ability, or any of that, or even how he performs when he's on the field. The problem he's always had was injuries and confidence, which, definitely go hand in hand. But also because you're playing in the big boy league now, this is not college where you can just, dominate, a lot easier, right? Because of lesser competition. Anyway, but it was, and yes, it is true he had a breakout season in Brian Flores's first year with the team, the year after, the Adam Gase tenure, etc. But that result has just as much to do, if not more, with the Adam Gase coaching staff than it does Brian Flores. They just happen to be the ones around. It was Adam Gase's team that finally got Devontae Parker to a point where he was, eating better and practicing better and having better sleeping habits and all that. It's undeniable. I mean, people can try and deny it all they want, but there were reports about it at the time. I'm sure you can Google it and find them, right? It's undeniable. During that time period was when he finally got his body right and started being able to fucking be healthy enough to be on the field. And finally it all culminated with that season where he was over 1,200 yards in Brian Flores' first year. That has far more to do, certainly in my opinion, but pretty much factually, although there is some slight debate there on actual, percentages, I guess. But it has more to do with Adam Gase's coaching staff than it did Brian Flores's. And guys like, Cameron Wake and Frank Gore and Danny Amendola and stuff like that they brought in. Veterans that helped, to coach him up and so on and so forth. Having said that, I said that they probably should, and I've thought this now for the past couple years, that they probably should just, let him go. He's going to cost too much. I mean, with the way that they handled the situation, I, was fine keeping Parker around because they stripped the team down. They didn't have anybody. So we needed players that I could feel confident with having around. But, for the past couple years, I've really just felt it was probably better that they just let him go. A change of scenery, I think, for him would be good. And for the Dolphins, it's hasn't proven to be worth it, right? And then, even this past year, he was like, oh, I'm not going to get injured and I'm going to play every game. And then he had some, injuries. Relatively minor, and he still had a decent season. But, right? So, and I'm not sure, I just don't think he's going to be part of the Dolphins, long-term sustained success that they want. I also don't think that they're going to achieve that goal because I don't think they're doing things properly, but anyway. So overall, I love Devontae Parker. He's, the only jersey I have left from a player that's still currently on the team. He was the guy that I wanted in that draft. And I still love him, right? Like as a player and whatnot. But I just don't think he's, I just don't think it's going to work with him, and he's going to cost a lot. But so anyway, he could be, yeah. So, however, releasing Parker would not save that much in cap space for the Dolphins in 2021 due to having 3 remaining years of a prorated bonus at $2.7 million. Parker would have $8.1 million in dead money left on his deal. Therefore, the Dolphins would create $4 million in salary cap relief. Excuse me. Also, it is fair to note that our wide receiver core is not exactly, scaring anybody. So we do still need to improve that room. So it's a tough choice there. But that's the thing though, is they've set themselves up to have so many tough choices because, they're on such thin ice with the approach that they took. Anyway, in terms of the other players on offense who could potentially be potential cut candidates, only Durham Smythe stands out. Smythe is a $2.3 million, and that would be a shame because, to me, he's definitely in the upper half of players on this team, as far as production, as far as how I can trust him, as far as, he was a draft pick here and he's been here for a while, as far as, whatever. Like, just, I think he's an all-around good player. He's a great blocker. He's a decent catcher, right? I think he pairs well with Gesicki, etc., etc. Smythe has a 2.3, and he doesn't really cost that much, although you would have to give him a new deal, but it could be, cheap, right? He wouldn't demand, crazy money or anything like that. 2.3 million cap number in 2021, 2.2 million of which could be saved if he were released. So pretty much all of it. Could the Dolphins move on from some defenders? We have already seen Kyle Van Noy released, but could the Dolphins consider moving on from other options on their defense? The headline name is perhaps Emmanuel Ogbah, which, again, this is self-inflicted, but that could be a possibility. They could end up getting rid of their sack leader from the previous year because they don't have cap space to do the kinds of grand things that they want to do and spend, all kinds of money in the offseason. Like, it's ridiculous, but this is the situation that they're in. The headline name is, I already mentioned that, the pass rusher has no guaranteed money on his deal because they gave it all to him up front. Again, a problem that I said with these high overpriced contracts is that they very much front loaded it. Anyway, let's see, and we'll count no guarantee money will count $7.5 million against the Dolphins salary cap in 2021. All of that money could be saved if the Dolphins were to decide to move on, but then they get rid of their sack leader from the previous year, and they definitely and that would be hurting for the Dolphins defensive line. On the back end of the defense, Bobby Mccain and Eric Rowe expect to count for a combined $13.2 million against the cap in 2021. Releasing Mccain could save 5.7, while releasing Rowe would save 5. As the two starting safeties, it seems unlikely, but so did the release of Van Noy. I mean, if some of these moves happen, which are very likely, that's why they're being talked about, because they're likely, because they have, anyway. But if they happen, it's not good things. It doesn't spell good things for the future of this team. There's no consistency. There's no fucking, you're getting rid of some of your best players, but you're having to because you set yourself up in a shitty cap situation, and you just insist on being big spenders every free agency. Like, it's stupid, but okay, let's just keep going in this fucking, stupid cycle, revolving round and round and round until what? I'm telling you, bro, Brian Flores in this regime is going to get canned after about three and a half years in total. So another year and a half, and they're going to get canned because, watch, they're going to be big spenders. They're probably going to go after Deshaun Watson. I think that's a high probability. And then they're not going to have a great season this year because they don't know how to build a fucking team, and they just fucking throw resources all over the place willy-nilly and think that's what's going to fucking fix it. And it's not proven to, hasn't ever, especially during Stephen Ross's tenure on this team. So, and it's not going to. But that's what they're going to continue to do, which is quite clear. And so we'll see. Another linebacker whose future is uncertain is Jerome Baker. It is likely the release of Van Noy ensures Baker will remain on the roster. However, with an opportunity to clear $2.4 million of his $2.7 million salary cap number, the Dolphins could decide to make the move. The final name is safety Clayton Fejedelem, who played mostly on special teams in 2020. Releasing him could provide the Dolphins $2.5 million in salary cap space this offseason. Yeah. Well, the Dolphins have players they can extend or restructure to create cap space in 2021. The Dolphins do not need to do anything in particular to cause themselves cap trouble down the road, even though they literally already have. Additionally, they do not have many players due for an extension after 2021. The Dolphins made it extend Emmanuel Ogbah rather than release him. Ogbah had an impressive first season in Miami. He registered a career-high 9 sacks, but that's career high. He's been in the league for how long? Right? So that was one of the points, right? You're not going to get anything superstar out of these guys. Their contracts were high priced, overpriced, and he couldn't even make it to 10 sacks. But he was in better defenses. These guys, Emmanuel Ogbah, Shaq Lawson, right? Whatever. These guys were in better defenses with the Patriots and Bills respectively, right? Than they are here. And they still couldn't even fucking, Kyle Van Noy, right? He couldn't get past his, career average. And, he couldn't even make it to 10 sacks, Ogbah. But now having said that, though, he was our sack leader and he could be gone. Potentially. There's not even rumors of it, to be clear, but it's possible because they, want to be big, anyway. It's just so frustrating. He registered a career-high 9 sacks, 21 quarterback hits, and 3 forced fumbles. The Dolphins could save around $5.2 million in salary cap space by extending Ogbah this offseason. Which players could the Dolphins restructure? Well, the Dolphins have no urgent need to restructure players. They may choose a couple to give themselves more breathing space in 2021. But that just pushes the commitments off to the other years and just strains them down the road. So he says that they don't have any need to do that, even though Xavier Howard actually is a player that wants a new contract, right? Anyway, so he says they don't need to do that, but then, although to be fair, he's just offering up options, this writer, but it's possible, right? Anyway, let's take a look, though. Let's take a look at some of their options and maximize cap savings that could be achieved with a conventional restructure. The Dolphins could save more than the numbers below if they were willing to add void years to their contracts, which would be a disaster, especially when you look at some of the players that we're talking about here. And why would they need to restructure it? Because the deals weren't good to begin with. They need to save cap space, and they're not getting what they expected from some of these players. Byron Jones, cornerback, maximum cap savings, $9.8 million. Devontae Parker, wide receiver, maximum cap savings, 5.3. And like I said, I thought they should have just let him go. They decided to sign him to a new contract. I didn't hate it because I like Parker and because, the wide receiver room is not that impressive, but ultimately, probably not the smartest decision. Eric Flowers, guard, maximum cap savings, $4 million. Shaq Lawson, edge, maximum cap savings, $3.8. Xavier Howard, cornerback, maximum cap savings, $8.3 million. I mean, and people say that they're not in cap trouble right now. Really, all the evidence proves the opposite. So, yeah, anyway, that's all I got. I mean, just real quick, also Dak Prescott did sign his new contract. Not that that's really relevant to the Dolphins. I'm going to pull up another quick article real fast. I'm just noting because, there's a bunch more articles talking about the Isaiah Wilson trade from the Titans to the Dolphins. I just want to make sure Wilson has been traded to the Dolphins. Titans are sending Wilson in a 2022 7th round pick to the Dolphins for a 2021 7th round selection. So again, the Dolphins aren't giving up really anything, so I have to admit, and I have to say that for the price that they are giving up, it's a solid risk, but it does come with a lot of potential bad. And if it does not work out, then it's a pretty big disaster overall. And there's unfortunately good reason to believe that it won't pan out. Because of the Dolphins' evaluation history, because of their history bringing in former first-round picks from other teams, just over the past 2 years, with Coach Flores and Chris Greer taking marching orders from Stephen Ross, right? So, I mean, it's just facts. It's just facts. People can be upset about it all they want. Their evaluation of players and coaches has been terrible in their first few seasons. That's why almost nobody sticks around, right? And I disagree with the tanking. I disagree with, the being big spenders in free agency, et cetera, et cetera. All right, anyway, that's what I got. There was a lot to talk about, so it ended up being a bit of a long video. But there's some content for you. Just to recap, obviously, they did sign some guys to exclusive rights free agent tenders. I thought those were solid moves. This Isaiah Wilson thing, honestly, if I'm being honest, I don't really like it, even though they're not giving up much. So it's overall, a solid risk to take considering the price. But there is a ton of bad that could come from it, and there's a lot of it's a super high risk, not just from the Dolphins end, but also because the kids got off the field issues and stuff like that, and whatever possible whatever. So yeah, anyway, I've said all I gotta say. You guys get the point. And then just wanted to talk about the trade and stuff like that. So bunch of big things happened today all at once, and I wanted to get that out there. So with that, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you guys appreciate my perspectives. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. And of course, as always, follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I'm out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.